from Wakefield, it's the Nolan Car Night Show. Inviting to join Nolan as guest this week, Jamaal Wise, the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Nolan.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the show. And joining me this week, one of the premier and top athletes that came through URI men's basketball history over the last 21 years. He is now currently a coach down in Maryland County. He is the one, the only, the Mr. Jamaal Wise. Jamaal, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
We're, as I said quickly before we got going, we're doing the best. The time of the year is changing, especially up north. So although the foliage is good for those to come up and view, but it gets a little darker and a little colder, and I don't like that. But we can't complain, I guess. Besides that,
Yeah, you know it's getting closer to basketball season when that's happening.
yes, when the trees are all bare, you know it's getting close to hoop season. As I besides the cold weather and all that fun jazz up here north, I sort of want to start like this. The last 3 years have been a little crazy, a little wild, a little insane. And your field as a coach in the basketball realm has been impacted a great deal compared to other fields as well. For you now looking at it as a coach, but also as a former player slash person in general, what's it look like to now be able to look back 3 years later and see what everything's changed?
Yeah, being this is my first year as head coach, but I've been assistant at the JUCO level for 6 years previously, and for 6 seasons. And we had a COVID season after that with the whole things with, guys getting NILs and things like that. I think that's pretty good stuff, but the transfer portal was just crazy. That's one of the biggest things that has been a big difference. Obviously, when I was in school back in '01 to '06, when we transferred, we had to sit out a year. So, now it's like free agency in college,
Yeah.
and that's just something different. But it has impacted on all levels. I mean, I have a 6'9" Division I transfer at my junior college, from Howard University. So there's like a trickle down effect where guys are getting moved around, and now it's making the JUCO level stronger. It's making Division II stronger. Guys are, we got Division I's going to Division IIs and high D1s going low D1s. So it's just a crazy time with recruiting. So not only do you have to worry about recruiting high school kids, but now you got to pay attention to transfer portal.
Sure, yeah. Well, at least during the last crazy 3 years, you're able to look at some positive degree. I always ask this question next, and I'm always interested to hear what people say because it makes them, I guess, answer a little bit more in depth. What's one thing that Jamaal Wise has learned about himself during the last 3 years they didn't know about himself prior?
How resourceful I can be. I've really learned about how much I can tap into different resources and find out and figure out things and ways to get folks in. Like we got an international guy, and we had to do some things to make sure he got in. Never, the first time in school history we have a basketball player that graduated outside of the states from high school. So at our junior college, that's a big deal because we don't have dorms yet. They still haven't built dorms, so we can't take care of the housing expense for our players. And for us to be able to get the players that we have, I feel this year I've had to do some really good networking and be very resourceful.
Well, there we go. That's always a positive thing and something you probably thought, how the heck am I going to do this prior to all this craziness? But you learn in the moment, I guess.
Yeah.
I sort of on a more positive note, I like to start as far back as I can, and as the guest is willing to. You're growing up Maryland County native. What was your relationship like with basketball? Not only in the sense of recreationally and athletically, but in the sense of following that pursuit after high school.
Yeah, so I grew up in Montgomery County in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is the county that Montgomery County and PG County are the two counties that touch DC. So I grew up probably like 5 miles outside of the DC area, the city of DC, should I say. So a lot of competition. Basketball was a very big deal. It was a lot of very good athletes growing up. I had an older brother who also played college ball, and his impact on my basketball life was really crazy because he was 7 years older than me, but he didn't treat me like a younger brother. He tagged me along everywhere. So by the time I was 14, 15 years old, I'm playing against guys in college. I'm playing up at Bowie State. I'm getting my butt kicked by dudes that are 20, 21 years old. I'm 15. But what it did was teach me how to not only use my athleticism, but I had to think faster. I had to get better at a lot of my skill sets. So by the time I was a junior in high school, I was so used to playing against college level athletes that I actually became a very dominant player in the DC area in high school, because playing against high school players, I'm like, shoot, I'm playing 21-year-olds all day, for the last couple of years. So my brother really impacted my game as he allowed me to get my butt kicked and be the weak link by taking me up to colleges and kind of putting me on his team, playing pickup games against older guys. So that just gave me more of a passion to work harder, get better. And then once I had the success I had in high school, I knew I wanted to try to take it as high as I can go, with the NBA being the goal. But I fell slightly short, but I got pretty close. So, but it was definitely something that heightened my basketball, perseverance, should you say.
There's now when I was doing my research and making sure I was doing the best I can to seem like I know what I'm doing, I found a clip on YouTube of a younger Jamaal Wise at Paint Branch High School, and he did an interview and they were talking about how good the team was, and it mentioned your skills as a pianist as well. In a world nowadays where a lot of kids specialize in one sport year round, for you growing up, what was it like to be able to have something so completely different than basketball and be able to be good at it as well?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough for my parents to push me. They say you got to play an instrument, and a lot of people play drums or different things. And I was like, look, if I wanted to learn music, I might as well learn the one with the most notes, and I'll probably be able to read the other instruments' notes if I can read the piano. So at 7 years old, I started playing the piano. I played all the way up through my senior year of high school. So I studied under a lady, Miss Carasato. She was a Juilliard grad, older lady. And Juilliard is one of the most prestigious music schools in the country. And so I studied classical and, jazz piano. And I just got good at it, started liking it. It's something that I wish I took to Rhode Island, and I wish I would have majored in music. But at the time, I was so basketball oriented. But it was something that also gave me a good rhythm. And it actually helped me in basketball with my rhythm, with understanding different things, like being detail oriented. So it was something that I think just made my mindset, and it made my brain power stronger. Learning the instrument, learning languages, all them things heightens your brain knowledge and your brain capacity. So it definitely was something that I was glad I took up.
Well, I was gonna ask, are you still able to play the piano to a certain degree?
I can read notes all day. The timing of it, maybe the rhythm's a little shaky. I can still play Fur Elise, though, the Beethoven song, and a
There we
couple
go.
of stuff playing around. But it's something I actually talked about wanting to get back into, just really tighten up on it, because I still know music very well. Like I can read all notes and key signatures. So yeah, it's something that I'm definitely gonna, once I get some time. I feel like I never have time to just unwind.
That's all we're looking for. We're always looking for more time, which there isn't, unfortunately, there. As a junior and senior in high school, because you see online and TV all the popping circumstance that comes from the decision day and the hats and switching one hat to the other and playing all these jokes on ESPN with Joe Lunardi and so on and so forth. But you never talk about how the athletes in the moment, especially some of the not big schools, deal with it. So as a junior and senior in high school, maybe your coach helped you with it. How did you deal with the attention that you were getting from big schools?
So at the time, I actually was wondering why I didn't get a whole lot of attention at first, because in our area, PG County is a big deal, and the DMV, DC public schools at the time was a very big deal. And then you got our private school league, which is one of the best conferences for high school in the country, with DeMatha, Gonzaga, St. John's. I mean, we have annually top 25 programs, at least 4 or 5 of those, with now Paul VI. There's a lot of great high school teams in this area. So Montgomery County public schools were kind of like second tier behind PGDC and the private schools. And so there was some things I got overlooked on, but when I played those schools, I always did well. So I started getting more attention my senior year. And then once I got I came on late because I had no clue I was receiving the award, but I got the Mr. Basketball of Maryland award because of, obviously my playing and my statistics and our record. So that's when I got some more college, recruits coming in. I got UVA coming, Cincinnati, Rutgers, but really Rutgers, Providence, and Rhode Island were the only ones that was really offering. Because before that, I had Mount St. Mary's, Richmond, William and Mary, Towson. I had like the mid-level D1s, but I didn't have the very high D1s probably until like March of my senior year, which is considered a late signing period after March. And so I signed in April or towards the end of April at Rhode Island. I signed pretty late. So it was, for me, I was kind of wondering, being second team All Met in the DC area as a junior and first team as a senior, why I wasn't getting as many high looks, but it all came around towards the after my senior year. And then I had to make some choices. And I kind of liked, the guys that were recruiting me from Rhode Island. And, they had a prestigious program. Lamar Odom had left 2 years previous. They had some good success. And, it was a situation where we had a chance to rebuild, because we were the last year before the Ryan Center, my freshman year. So we played our freshman year in Keeney, and then we opened up the Ryan Center with Dustin, DeJuan, all those guys. We were all on the same team our sophomore years. The Ryan Center opened. So I wanted to be a part of something like that.
Sure.
So that was kind of my deciding factor, as opposed to going to Rutgers or maybe Providence or something like that.
Which I wanted to sort of mention about, you talked about rebuilding, and the school had previous success in the 80s and 10 years later in the 90s. And then after Jim Herrick left in 98, it was a rough 1 or 2 years with their coach after that. And then you come in and with Jim Barron in the new era of Rhodey, and then you open up your sophomore year, the Ryan Center. Entering before your freshman year, did you have any reservations in terms of what was going to happen during that rebuilding year, your first year after choosing Rhodey?
I knew that they had like 8 wins in 2 seasons, right? After Di Gregorio. And I came in on the visit, and I knew like some people was coming and going. Like, I had met Tavares Bell. I thought he was a cool guy, awesome guy. Stephon Marbury's brother was there, Zach Marbury. But those guys, Coach Barron wasn't. Those weren't the guys Coach Barron brought in. They decided to leave, and so our freshman year, we knew it was going to be a rebuilding process. And we went 8-20 that year. But what I did know was that I came up on my visit with. That's when I met DeJuan Robinson. Me and him was on the same official visit. And I had, briefly heard about him, but I didn't know, obviously how good he was until we came into our freshman years. And he had to sit out our freshman year. He had the red shirt. He was a Prop 48. But what I did know as a freshman was, shoot, if you got me, Dustin, DeJuan going to be back next year. We had Brian Woodward coming back. We've had some really talented guys, Howard Smith. We had some dudes that I knew that after that first year, I felt like we could really make some things happen. And we stuck it out. All of us did. No one transferred. All of us stuck it out. And then we turned around and had a 20-win season the very next year after being 8-20. And so it was just a matter of trusting the guys that I was around and seeing how we was in workouts and seeing the talent and being a believer in what we had in that program.
I'm not a basketball player. I mean, in a sense, I'm more of the Norris Cole, Mario Chalmers, Udonis Haslem type of player. Come in for a few minutes, miss a hell of a lot of shots, but still shoot the lights out.
Oh, good.
But the big three need those 3 players to win the 2 championships. Point being, with the team, especially in college, I would think you need all sorts of different players to put together a sense of unity and success. What was the conversation like between you and Coach Barron in terms of what they were expecting you to produce, but then also what you thought realistically you could bring?
Coach Barron and them, they expected me to really be somebody that can, spearhead the offense. I was very athletic. I had like a 39-inch vertical. So I was getting up and down the court. I was a high flyer. developed a really good mid-range. At the time, I wish I had the three-point shot I had when I went overseas. I wish I had that a little more in college, but I worked on it. And by the end of my college career, I started developing that pretty good. But it was a point where he was just really like, you're a dog. You play with a very good, intensity. You rebound well for your size. We need you to be a defensive, stopper, someone who can guard multiple positions, and then get up and down the floor in transition and be someone who can put pressure on the defense with your offensive skills. So they, wanted me to make sure I continued to work hard, get in the gym, which I can keep it honest. My freshman year, I probably should have grinded a little more. I started really grinding my sophomore year, but my junior and senior year, I lived in the gym. And if I did that as a freshman, I think I would have had success earlier individually.
Sure.
But it was just something that was, you had to get the right mindset, grow up a little bit, but I can be honest with myself and say, all right, your first year, you didn't work like you should have. You wasn't in the gym like that, too busy going to these all down off-campus bonnet show parties and stuff like that. But it was okay though. I started to get it together, and I started to meet the coaches' expectations of what they had for me coming out of high school.
That first year, talking about the rebuilding year, and DeJuan sitting out, you're playing underneath and learning from guys like Troy Wiley and Marcus Evans. What was it like to experience that? Because I'm sure you probably thought, oh yeah, I want to start, I want to play all these minutes, but then you have to sort of humble yourself and say, okay, I got to bid my time. What was it like learning underneath players like Wiley and Evans?
It was cool. I think Troy Wiley is one of the most unbelievable talents to come through Rhode Island in the last 20 years, on the 22 years. You talking about a 6'9", legit 6'9" guy who had a handle, who could shoot the three, was athletic. Troy Wiley was definitely a superb talent. Marcus Evans was, that's the big bro. He, was very physical, another big guy, 6'9". Those guys were, guys who tried to, get the best out of us. I think with Troy, I always, say if Troy was able to, make sure those academics was good that whole year, he would have been probably all conference, all A10, first team. I mean, he gave David West like 25 and 11 at Xavier when he played that year when I was a freshman. I mean, he was just an extreme talent. So it was good learning from those guys, though, because, they both put work into the gym and they really, worked on themselves. So coming in from high school, I thought, those were good guys to, make sure I tried to get, match their work ethic, match their intensity. So, yeah, they was very two good guys that I, my older guys that I really looked up to when I came in.
Now, the last few years, it hasn't necessarily been the case with both of our alma mater being URI against rivals that once were there. And hopefully with the new coaching staff at some of the schools that are still in the A10, it gets reignited, but the rivalry between PC and UMass, and although Temple is no longer in the A10, but once was there. As a freshman, you're experiencing those three teams, Temple, PC, and UMass. What were your first early experiences like against those teams, or learning that about those games?
How physical those games were. Like Temple had a front line with Kevin Lyde and Rollerson that was probably a combined weight of 530 pounds. Like I think Kevin Lyde might have been like 270 and Rollerson might have been like 300, like 280, 290. It was at least 550 plus. Big dudes, man. And they would put both of them at the same time. Then you had Lynn Greer, who was one of the top scorers in the conference at that time. UMass had a good team. They had a lot of talent up there. Those guys were very physical as well. And then Providence, you had like Kaba and Mills, and Gomes was, I think, maybe a sophomore. But they had a very good team. And they just was a tough team to play against. Linehan would pick up 94 feet, was probably one of the best defensive players in the country. So you had to be physical. And, it had to teach you some toughness. Like you had to know, it made you know how tough the Division I college game is.
Your sophomore year, as you said, the team does a complete 180 and has an amazing year, makes the NIT tournament. How early on, and maybe it was prior to the Northeastern game to open the season, or maybe a little after, how early on could you tell, or you and the team could tell that, hey, we have something special here?
Yeah, that Northeastern game, we played against Juan Barea. He was on Northeastern and we beat them. But I think we know, like when it started from the beginning when Dustin hit that shot against USC and we won that first opening game. And that was a Power 5 conference at the time, Pac-10. They had UCLA, USC, all the Arizona, like all of them. So we beat a Pac-10 team in our home opener in a new arena. And it was really just a big deal. Like, it was like, okay, this is how we opening up. And we beating a team like USC, who had two twins that was on the team that were NBA caliber. They had Mike Bibby's father as a coach. It gave us some confidence and it gave us some motivation to say, yeah, this ain't going to be like last season. And as we went through, we beat a lot of good teams. I mean, we had a couple losses that I think kept us out of the NCAA tournament, but we was on the bubble, and I felt that we should have made that tournament. But because we had beat St. Joe's that year too, when they had Jameer Nelson and them off of Brian Woodward's putback layup at the buzzer at home, and we just had a lot of really good games that year. Not to mention we beat Seton Hall in the NIT and all that. I mean, it was an excellent year, but all throughout that we stayed connected together and we knew that we had something special because we was beating teams, and even the games we lost, we were highly competitive, but we beat PC that year. I mean, it started off from the break from the first regular season game on that we knew that we had something special.
Well, that's the thing I've sort of realized about the former players from URI and former teams, especially teams that found success, is that they all, although they were very talented in their own rights, they weren't over exuberant in terms of cockiness or anything like that. They were humble and they knew the roles that they played, and they knew that they were going to kick any ass that they could to find victory. I want to mention the PC game that year. You return receipts against Brown and PC early on the season as well. PC URI hasn't been PC in a while nowadays, but what was it like to beat PC? Not only beat them, but then beat them at their gym.
That was something. It was a very good game, and we ended up knocking them off. There was a big newspaper article in the Providence Journal and Projo with me and Dustin hugging each other after the game. And I had a pretty good game. I forgot, I had like 9 and 7, 9.7 rebounds. Dustin had a good game. DeJuan played well. We had good, performances from all the supporting cast and the guys that was leading the team. But it was just a big deal because Rhode Island hadn't beat Providence, and I forgot how long. But it was something that we really wanted to do because we tired of hearing about Providence being the best team in the state. And actually, I did 5 years because I had a medical red shirt, but I went 3-1 against Providence. My only loss against Providence was my freshman year. My sophomore, junior year, and my 5th year, I got wins against Providence.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything, and those were good teams, man. Ryan Gomes and Rob Sanders and them guys, McGrath. The fact that we were able to beat them guys consistently throughout our tenure at Rhode Island, that was a big deal. But that sophomore year in 2002-03, that was a big win for us because we hadn't beat Providence in I forgot how many years they said, but it was just a great experience winning in the Dunkin' Donuts Center.
That year, you guys also play your handful of seeded teams, ranked teams. I believe Dayton, Xavier, and Pittsburgh. Besides maybe obviously the number that's next to the hashtag next to that school's name and maybe a few more stars the players have in their rating, what separates a team like Rhodey and those ranked teams, do you think?
I'm not sure. I think maybe some of them teams, they had really, really dominant bigs. Were just, like Pitt was a big team. They had guys, Chevron Troutman. They had some really big guys, 6'10", 6'9". You get to that level, you might have a 6'9" 3-man or 6'9" 4, and you can throw waves of guys in. So maybe the depth, maybe instead of only being able to go 8 or 9 deep, they can go 11 or 12 deep. But there really wasn't a big difference. I felt that we could beat any team we faced. I mean, you think about that year, we beat University of Miami in Las Vegas at a tournament. And they had Darius Rice. We beat UNC Charlotte that year. I mean, we beat a lot of teams. Providence, like you said, USC. It was we beat a lot of really good teams that year. So I think it was just a matter of sure will. I never looked at a ranking.
Sure.
Even, I know you'll probably get into it, but even our junior year when St. Joe's was number 2 in the country and we lost by 2, never looked at ranking. And
Sure.
it was just like those guys on the same level as us. And so, but with the, maybe a couple more guys that can, take up some size, take up some space, and, maybe a couple more people in the depth chart, I don't think there's really much of a difference.
That year, you guys end with a home and away win against UMass and Duquesne. After the win against Duquesne, where was the team's confidence, do you think, in terms of postseason capabilities?
We we looked back on a few games that we lost and was like, dang, if we won them joints, I think we wouldn't even be on the bubble for the tournament because we really wanted to make the NCAA tournament. But we was happy about being able to go to the NIT. We knew we was going to get invited to the NIT. So we ended up, just seeing who we had, and we were excited. Just going from 8-20 to now being postseason. They didn't have all the postseason stuff they have now. Like they got the CIT or whatever
Yeah.
called, like that was, it was just NCAA and NIT, and it was 64 teams in the NCAA, no playing, and it was NIT. At that time, we probably would have been in the playing game,
Okay.
considering
Yeah.
the type of season we had. So, but it was just different back then, and the NIT was a good accomplishment, so we were happy about it.
What was it about you played Temple in the second round of that tournament? What was it about Temple that year that made them such a good team that was a struggle for the team?
Uh, David Hawkins, very strong guard. They had an amazing kind of half court trap like defense that makes you think that certain passes are open. And Coach Cheney, great, unbelievable, legendary coach. Rest in peace to him. I mean, he was just awesome. He did a great job preparing his team, and they always was a dog on defense. They was tough to deal with, and he always had them prepared. They didn't turn the ball over a lot. You had to be sharp against them, using ball fakes, making sure you're not throwing those passes that were like 50-50 balls. But they baited you into thinking that you really had to be good on your scout to understand what not to do against them.
That following year, the 03-04 year, the team goes 12-3 from November 11th of 2003 to January 7th of 2004. That's pretty impressive to go that sort of win streak and have that sort of record in college sports, especially back then. What was the confidence level in terms of maintaining that, but also what would happen after that?
We just knew that, people were not going to think, oh, Rhode Island is just a pushover. We knew that we was going to get a target on our back. We was getting top 25 votes, in the country. Like, first time since Lamar Odom and Cuttino Mobley and them, well, those days, which was like 97, 98, we was as close to a top 25 ranking as they have. It took 5 or 6 years since that time for that to occur again. And with us being juniors, we knew me, Dustin, and Dewan was a redshirt sophomore at the time. We knew that we had to really buckle down and grind because we was going to have a target on our back. 12-3 guys know we're good, so they're going to give us our best shot. And it was just a matter of trying to stay focused.
That year, you guys, I believe, make postseason play again.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like to now make it a second year in a row in the NIT tournament?
It was good. We was disappointed a little because we started out 12-3 and kind of fell apart after the winter break. I think we needed our fans there at the game, man. I don't know what was going on, but we lost like 4 out of 6 or something, and we ended up being knocked out. A couple bad losses with a Fordham loss and a couple other losses, and going from 12-3 and getting almost top 25, cracking that, and then we made the NIT. We were still happy, wanted to make the tournament, but that NIT was very good, and we actually had a really good showing in that NIT. I believe we beat BU and Seton Hall, and I believe, and then we lost to West Virginia by like 8 or something like that. I forgot, but it was a pretty good run we had in the NIT.
The following year, you mentioned you get a medical red shirt. Dewan, I believe, is out as well. Was there a silver lining to any of that season that year?
I honestly think that's the season that would have put us over. And you can always speak in hypotheticals, and you never know. But we had went down to Dominican Republic that summer, and we played against their pro teams down there in DR. I mean, we dominated, but the lineup was crazy. Like, the lineup was like Dewan at the 1. I had gotten my jump shot consistently enough to play the 2 or the 3. We had Scott Hazelton, who transferred from UConn. He was 6'8", 3. We had T-Mac at the 4. We had Marcel, John Clark, those bigs at the 5. If you look at that lineup, you got Dewan at 6'3", I'm at 6'6", Scott at 6'8", T-Mac 6'7", strong, Marcel 6'9", and we were all gelling together. And I think that's the team right there. And not to mention, if Dustin would have stayed and not transferred out, I think that's the team that we could have made like a Sweet 16 run. I'm just going to this day, we all talk about, I think that was the team that could have did it. So it was really tough. I had a stress fracture in my tibia. Dewan had a stress fracture in his foot. We were both roommates rehabbing. Like, dang, I want to play. The one game we played at Iona, I had like 12 or something, and then my leg felt like it was going to fall apart. And then they ended up medical redshirting us. And it was just, it was tough. It was a tough season, watching the guys have to, struggle, because at the time, me and Dewan were 2 of the 3 captains, and it was like, man, we both had to sit out. And then Scott and T-Mac and them, they dealt with some injuries, but they kind of played through it that year. And it was just a tough season. I wish, we all could have been healthy, because I tell you, that team right there, we had length, we had size, and I was in my mode at that time. I was a legit, guard. I transitioned from playing the 3 and the 4 to being able to play the 2 and 3 pretty well, so.
Besides that year where you're injured and Dwan's injured, your stats, your own personal stats as a player, are rising each year and getting better. What was the goal and mission besides coming back from your injury your final year at URI?
To first of all try to get back to postseason, be a winning program, try to be help be the leader along with Dewan, and T-Mac, to really try to get these guys to a place of excellence, and then individually try to be all conference, try to make sure that I'm being consistent every game, and improve my shooting, because at the time I wasn't shooting the 3 that well, and I wasn't really an outside threat. I became more of that my senior year, and just really focus on getting in the gym and getting that work ethic piece together to where all the guys follow suit. And me and Dewan really worked out hard in the gym that year, coming into our 5th year, and rehabbing the injury coming off of that to get our rhythm back, So
you graduate from URI, and compared to all of the success you had as a player there, how much did that mean to you as a person to complete that?
I got an older brother and 2 parents. I was the first one to get a bachelor degree. meant a lot because you're a student first, then the athlete. So I took care of the student part, became, I was a successful student athlete after high school. And that's a big deal because a lot of people don't make it through all the time. And it was just a very good accomplishment that, I was happy that I didn't have to go back to school and finish. I was able to get my bachelor degree at that moment. So it was a very good accomplishment. I was very proud of myself for that.
Now, I had Dewan on a while ago, and he told me about a story that he made everybody do during 1 year at URI, although it wasn't too long of a thing. And he talked about headbands and how he got everybody to wear a headband on the team. Now, how long before you stopped wearing the headband during that year he made everyone do it?
I was cool with the headband. I just thought, I sweated a lot, so that I was like, that headband might be all right for me. I used to sweat so much, so it kept the sweat out my eyes. But yeah, that was the one thing. He always wore the headband. I don't know if he's trying to cover his hairline up. I don't know what was going on, but that was his thing. And then we was like, we'll follow suit, and it was a team unity thing. It was something that I think we all enjoyed and followed suit with him doing it, and with him being our, really offensive threat, one of our best players on the team. At that moment, he was just such a dog on the court that we was like, yeah, man, we're gonna rock with you. We're gonna follow your lead. So
After graduating college from URI, what was your relationship like with basketball compared to when you were growing up prior to URI?
That I was going to try to figure out this pro thing. I was like, I want to make money playing basketball. I want to try to push this thing to the limits, even if I'm not getting drafted to the NBA. I really wanted to enjoy the fruits of my labor from basketball and go overseas. And I was able to do that for like 7 or 8 years, man. It's not too many people that can say that they were able to have a 7 or 8 year overseas career in Canada, Europe, and South America, and it's just like I got to see the world. I got to experience different cultures and live places that I thought I would never live. And it was just it made me such a more grateful person for my journey. And even got the chance to, trial for the development league, which is the G League now, and did well with that too. So it was like it pushed me. I actually worked probably 10 times harder when I became an overseas player than I did when I was in college. I mean, my junior and senior years, I really grinded at Rhode Island, but I was working my butt off overseas, because that was my job. So, but the injury bug hit.
Yeah.
So that's where that bachelor degree came in.
Exactly. As I've asked to others who have been on here who have played overseas, nothing lasts forever, of course. You have to call it quits one day or another. Being that you were around basketball for so many years of your life, a big portion of your life, how did you come to grips that your playing years were done?
Just because I really did when I got hit with I say the injury bug, but it was really two major injuries. And, tore my ACL when I was overseas in my second or what was that? Yes, my second year. And didn't know it was tore. I felt something crazy. I went and I went in Canada in '09 and came back and I messed my knee up, and I was like, I got surgery. When I got the MRI, they said you tore your ACL. So then I had to sit out. I get back 2012, same thing, get a major knee injury, same leg. And I'm like, okay, this is like I've been out of college for 7 years. I'm doing well, but I'm not spiking on my income. And at the time I had a son, and it was like, I got to make some grown man decisions. Do I go and take this contract for $4,000 a month, or do I go and, try to figure this thing out on plan B? And it kind of came to an end once I had that second knee surgery, and it was like, really, had to give myself a self check and say it was the hardest thing to do. I
Sure.
mean, I've played semi-pro after those two knee surgeries and things like that, but it was the hardest thing to do. And you know, I'm still grateful for the time I was able to spend overseas from '06 to 2012, really. And it was just a great time. But, when your body stops not holding up and then it's not financially, you know, as, gratifying as you would like it, then that kind of helps you, make a decision too.
Sure. Well, after eventually a few years after that, you further your academic accomplishments, and then you also joined the coaching staff where you still are today. What was that experience like? As not only as a person to then get your master's degree, but then also become then a coach at a school.
Well, I was like, trying to figure out some things. I got into teaching. I was high school math teacher, and I was like, man, am I going to be a teacher in my life? Like, I never even thought I would be in the classroom again. So, and then I had one of my, older guys, real good friends with my brother. He got the head coaching job in Montgomery College. So that's our local community college, our local junior college here in one of the local junior colleges here in Maryland. And I was like, sure, I'll coach. And he was like, man, you got a good name. People know you. Think you'll be a good addition to our program. So coach with him was the assistant coach with him. And I think our immediate success from the guys we were able to pull in, I was like the recruiting coordinator, and it was immediate success. Like we accomplished something at the school that they hadn't accomplished in over 20 years, and that was to win the conference championship. And then it was a 20 plus win season in our very first year. In the previous 2 years, they had won like 5 games and like 7 games. So they won like a total of 12 games in the previous 2 years or something like that. And we come in and have a 23-9 season. That immediate success was fun. Like, it's like, wow. And I'm doing this on the college level. And so I stayed with it. I started to enjoy coaching. And I realized after like a couple years, I'm like, wow, I enjoy coaching just as much as playing.
Yeah.
So then I looked into, what it takes to become a Division I coach and to move up to the next levels. And one of the things was, furthering your education. So I went back to grad school and got my master's in education. So now, if I ever get a call up or a chance to coach, at the higher level, an assistant coach doesn't need a master's, but a head coach does. And if you're not aiming for your highest level of coaching, then what are you coaching for?
Yeah.
And so when I went back and got my master's, again, first time accomplishment for anybody in my family. And it was just like, it showed me that I can persevere and I got the brain capacity to do anything I want. So, but then the coaching thing took off more because we were still winning. We moved up in division. We had finished 5th in the country in D3 JUCO. And then we went up to Division II. And we started having 3 player of the years in our first 4 years, for the conference. And we're in a great conference with Allegheny and Garrett, and guys that go from the NBA from our conference. Steve Francis played in this conference. So it's a very tough junior college conference. And so it was just a very, big deal that we were being successful. And I was still around the game of basketball.
Sure.
Because then I'm like, okay, I can ride this teaching thing out, but as long as this coaching thing can take off, then eventually my passion, which is coaching, will take off, and I can do that. And I can kind of remove myself away from the classroom. So that's the ultimate goal. Not that, being a math teacher in high school isn't a great thing, but it's, my overall goal is to permanently be a coach,
Sure.
whether it's an assistant at the D1 or NBA level or D2 level, or be a head coach on those levels,
Well, I want to ask you because in college sports, and you see all the time nowadays, it's a revolving door of success now. Whether biding the time and patience to have success down the line, to have had success early on in your coaching career, but then to last this long at a school is another thing. When did that go from, in your opinion or your viewpoint, from okay, this guy was a good player, he might be a good coach, then okay, he's now a good coach and he's proven himself, to then given a shot of being a head coach?
Like I was able to understand all the knowledge that I learned from playing D1 and playing overseas. You know, when you play in Europe, you learn a different style than when you play in South America. And then you play in Canada and you got different coaches. My coach was from Uruguay, or no, he's from Argentina. Coach Osbani. He was from Argentina. He was my coach in Canada, which I had high success in. Like I got a YouTube video called "Who Got Next," and it shows me when I was in Canada, and I was balling, against guys who had NBA tryouts and workouts and high level competition, like Val Brown, guys from GW that almost had a chance to really be stars and come up in the NBA. And I'm playing against these guys and on a pro level, and I'm holding my own and I'm playing well. And I was fortunate because I had to learn the 2, the 3, and the 4 position. I was always playing shooting guard, small forward, and power forward. I was one of the shortest guys in the top 10 in rebounds when I played in Uruguay. I was probably the shortest dude in the top 10 in rebounds in that league when I played in 08, 09. And I was fortunate to be able to learn the wing position and the 4 position. And so it made my mind just retain all these different plays and all these different sets. So then when I got into coaching, I'm like, man, I know how to implement different things. I know different defensive schemes. I know different offensive sets, different continuity sets. So I'm like, man, this, like, once I realized like I can go into my bag and I could just, all this stuff started to be, and not even things I'm writing down, just things off memory. I was blessed with a photographic memory. And I was able to just implement those things in my coaching and provide some support as an assistant. And now as a head coach, really fully implement what I know and see how it turns out. But getting 105 wins in 5 seasons on a staff, that's major. And
Sure.
moving up in division on the JUCO level, we were averaging 21 wins a season, and we only played 28 to 30 games. So like that success as an assistant coach, where I'm the recruiting coordinator and I'm bringing in guys that are getting all conference and things like that. Now I've shown that I can recruit, and now I've shown that I got the X's and O's as well. And so see how it turns out this year.
Yeah.
I'm excited. It looks good. I
Yeah.
had practice this morning, and I'm excited to see what our final product going to look like when it counts.
Sure. Well, you mentioned a few seconds ago of wanting to be a head coach, either the D1 level, D2 level, or the NBA, whatever it may be at any of those places. If given the opportunity, would you want to coach at your alma mater? I mean, I know Archie Miller just joined there and he'd be there for a few years, but if the opportunity was available, would you take it?
Immediately. As an assistant, oh my God. Look, I'd be third assistant. I don't need to be top assistant. Look, if he wants me, I would be immediately, I would have no problem coming back to URI. My son and daughter live in New England. So, they come down to visit me in Maryland, but my son and daughter live in New England. So that's a no-brainer for me,
Yeah.
And it's my alma mater.
Sure.
So there's a passion that I would have. And I know all the boosters. I still know Joe Formicola, still talk to Carl Kuza. I still talk to those guys like
Sure.
every now and then. So, I know the landscape also of that area. And I got a lot of connections up there too.
Sure.
So, yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully, you experienced success as a player there with Jim Barron as the head coach, making NIT tournament appearances. And it's known that it was a while till URI had success again, especially during Dan Hurley, and then briefly with David Cox, and hopefully Archie Miller brings back as well. What do you hope happens to this new era or point in URI basketball history?
I hope that URI can maintain the excellence. It feels like sometimes we go through these 3 to 4 year or 2 to 4 year winning streaks where we got 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 straight years of success. Getting to the tournament, 21 seasons, and then we have 2 to 3 years where we drop off. Then we come back And I want it to be a situation like Rhode Island's too prestigious of a school. We got too good of a history to not be able to be a team that's contending in our conference in the A10 every year, and have a possibility of being in the NCAA tournament, but at least the NIT. And I was happy to see when they had Delroy James and Lamont Omer and all those guys, man, very unbelievable good group Hassan had. Like we've been able to maintain and get guys in that had prestigious, careers after college and did their thing while they were in college. But I want this next generation to be something where every year people got to keep an eye on Rhode Island.
Sure.
It would be good for us to be that way, and have that type of success and have it prolonged.
Before we enter, and again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I want to end on a little segment called the One Word Challenge. So in this segment, what I'll do is I'll throw out a few names of people, places, or things that have some connection to my guest this week being legendary Jamaal Wise, and he has to do his best to say a word or two or three, whatever it is. The best comes to mind when he hears the phrase. So are you ready?
All right.
Maryland County.
Where I grew up.
Kingston, Rhode Island.
Heydays.
Kinney Gym.
First year.
The Ryan Center.
Greatest moments.
Jim Barron.
Great coach.
And last but never least, in this cosmic universe we all live in called Earth, Jamaal Wise.
Hard worker.
Well, although this is a brief time that I've known you or spoke to you, I have that suspicion that you are a hard worker. Well, sir, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to do this, to speak to a URI grad as well, and to pique the mind and hear what your stories about URI is a great treat for me. So thank you.
I appreciate you having me. I'm honored for you having me on the podcast, Nolan.
Well, thank you. Well, all those out there who enjoyed it, because who the hell wouldn't? And down the line, when Jamaal gets a big head coaching job, whether it be at URI, if Archie doesn't work out, or in the NBA, you're going to say, holy crap, I should subscribe when I did. So subscribe, follow, comment, share, all that fun jazz, and then help it blow up. Follow on Twitter, Nolan Cart Night Show, and Nolan Cart Night, and then Instagram, Nolan Cart Night Show. And in the words of Johnny Carson Ladina, talk shows like this, although mine's not the same quality, I bid you a heartfelt good night. Until next time, take care.